screen, isn't that weird?
That
5
is
there.
weird.
It says it's being recorded. I was just.
Okay.
Yeah,
Let's officially begin this meeting. Call this meeting to order at 6:33 on this wonderful day of 10/23/2023. Any changes, additions to the agenda? Hearing none, I will take a motion to approve the minutes of September 25th.
So moved. Second, Rebecca.
Okay. Any discussion, comments of the agenda, of the minutes? None. All in favor of approving the September 25th meeting, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, and I am an aye. Public participation is completely unorganized. I got here early too. Public comment is not legally required, but we believe it is crucial for us to hear from our community members about their concerns over issues. Through these meetings, our board models for our students how to conduct public discourse, and that the board and members of our community can approach controversial issues in a civil and constructive manner and can demonstrate mutual respect. Having said that, please note that the board is here to listen. The public comment period is not designed for discussion. Please start by identifying yourself and what town you reside in. Do we have any public comment? Pauline.
I'm not a public comment, but an announcement that I will not be seeking reelection this coming year.
Oh,
You will be missed, Colleen.
Thank you.
yeah.
Just trying to make it official, so
Okay.
thank you.
Oh.
Anybody else have any public comment or bad news? Okay. Colleen, I will, my public comment is that, if I say Colleen, it's been a pleasure working with you on this SU board. And you will be sorely missed. But I wish you the best of luck with future endeavors.
Thank you. I have really enjoyed it. And just kind of a mix of reasons. Kids are getting older. We've got senior year coming up. It's not nothing that is making me leave or anything. I will miss doing it.
Life goes on. Administrative report.
We're gonna start with Tracy tonight.
Okay.
All right.
Let's see, am I sharing your screen? Or are you sharing your screen?
If you don't, yeah, if you
I
don't
can do
mind
it, yeah.
sharing, so that's.
Angie, I co-hosted you in case somebody's trying to get in. Okay.
Okay. Okay, so, everybody hear me okay? You can hear me, okay. So I just want to start by prefacing the next 20-25 minutes by saying we are having a conversation about race and racism, and we are trying to do that in 20 to 25 minutes. So there are a lot of limitations with trying to do that. The way that I was thinking about this was, okay, yes, I can give an update on where we're at with the anti-racism policy. The board's also requested, right, some common language, shared understanding. So how are we going to talk about this anti-racism policy if we have differing ideas about race and racism? So I thought, hey, that's an opportunity to talk about this. And I just want to underscore how 20 to 25 minutes is really not a lot of time to do that. This conversation can bring up lots of different feelings, emotions. I want to encourage everybody as we're having this conversation to take care of yourselves. I don't ever know or pretend to know how this is going to land with everybody. And there's a lot to unpack in this. And so we're going to try and keep it to the 20-25 minutes. And where I could, I pulled language that already exists within this policy. So it shouldn't be things, especially for the board, that you're unfamiliar with. I also know that there are a lot of different ideas and opinions about this. And the best resource I can say is, if you have not watched, and I can share this with y'all, Jay Smooth has a 19-minute TED Talk where he talks about race and racism. And one of the things he says in there is that it was the dance partner designed to trip us up. And I really feel that is true. The dance partner designed to trip us up. So with all that said, again, just noting there's an opportunity to continue conversations. I'm open, available to meet with board members, members of the community. I encourage that. I mean, this is not a time for us to be isolated in our own beliefs. You know, part of the reason I do this work is because it's the conversations that we need to be having. And so I invite those both in this meeting and outside of it anytime. Okay. So with that, let's roll through a couple updates. So we have, with the equity audit, we have some all-staff follow-ups coming. This Wednesday is the first one that's going to be at Wethersfield. The idea for that is to really start to engage with teachers and staff around what they may already be doing that helps to support, you know, some of the findings with the equity audit. No surprise, a lot of that also aligns with the anti-racism policy, also aligns with the equity policy, right? There's lots of puzzle pieces that come together. So those follow-ups are starting this Wednesday. Next slide would be great. And we also started doing some Monday meetings. This is just open time at different schools. So far, today was actually the second one in Albert Bridge. So this is just a time for teachers to come together in school-based teams, just to start talking about what's happening with diversity, equity, inclusion, where there are opportunities, what are the needs, all that kind of stuff. So those are some things that are happening currently. All right, so board discussion. This is where we get into the update on the anti-racism policy. And I did send out some pre-work. Maybe folks were able to engage in it or not. Again, this is a very complex conversation that we're having in a short time. So I think the first question is really if anybody would be willing to share, what is your understanding of what race is? What is race?
My understanding of race is that it is a human construct in which people are grouped by color of their skin and geographic locations that they originated from.
Thanks for sharing that. It's a human construct, geographic location. It's not in all cases. I'll just note that, but yes. Any other thoughts? What is race?
I think race is, I'm trying to be clear with this, but is a situation that has sort of places some groups in a position that can be imbalanced or so it kind of becomes a factor in determining eligibility for resources. I mean, that is really not what I was thinking, but I mean, but the more I think about it, yeah, determining eligibility for access, for resources. And so it's been set up. It's been like, it's like been created on some level.
Yeah, I think unless anyone is burning to add in here, I think both of your comments are really, I think the both and, right? Race on one hand is a social political construct. It was something that was designed. It wasn't, we didn't always have race in this country. I mean, you can look back into like early parts of Jamestown, like race wasn't a thing yet. It was a thing that was like, it kind of was like co-created with capitalism, like separating people by right? Distinctions in skin color and other group factors. So on one hand, it's like race was this made up construct, and on the other hand, the experience of race is profoundly real. So it's a both and. And it's messy, it's hard to talk about. It's probably one of the harder isms and things for us to talk about. So if we can get good at talking about race and racism, we can probably get good at talking about a lot of things that are uncomfortable.
I just wanted to add that I thought that part of racism was cultural too, breaking up the cultures.
I think they're related. They're definitely related. This is where I was like, the 25 minutes is probably not enough time for us to really unpack all of this. But I think for the purpose of this conversation, it's really understanding that race is something that was a social political construct. And it's not that we're biologically the same as humans, right? We're like 99.5% the same. I think penguins have twice as much genetic diversity as humans. Fruit flies have like 500 times. And they all look the same, right? I mean, there's more genetic diversity in places where people look the same. Like, there's more genetic diversity in countries where people look the same. So it's like, again, for the purpose of our conversation, hold on to these two things, the both and. Race is a made-up social political construct, and the experience of race is also profoundly real, okay?
So genetic variability is a direct component of time. And humans, modern humans, are a relatively short-lived species. They're not that old. Chimpanzees
Right.
basically
not a lot
are
of
twice
time
as old
to-
as we are, and they have about twice as much genetic variability. The other thing that's extremely important is to understand that how important human constructs are to us as people. One of the most important one is, of course, the economic system, which is a complete human construct. Okay? So when I look at things, whether or not it is a factual or if it's a human construct, I have something called the raccoon test. If you present something to a raccoon, if it really doesn't recognize what you're doing, hand a raccoon a $100 bill. Okay, what are they going to do with it? Are they going to take it and then cash it in for, 100 Snickers bars? No, they're going to chew it and push it aside. Money is a human construct. Same thing as human race is a construct. Is a raccoon going to run away someone of color faster than someone who is Caucasian? No, not really. They're just because it's a person.
Yeah, I don't know.
So.
Yeah. So yeah, it's complex. We'll say that.
Right.
It's definitely complex. Yeah. So it's made up and it's real in both hands. So let's roll through. Okay. So thoughts on, and the next slide is just the definition of I will say a definition of race, again, for the purpose of our conversation and our work together. That one might be animated.
Would you like the ACLU definition?
So, and there are many more complicated definitions than this one.
Yeah.
This one?
Yeah. Okay, so this is what we just talked about. It's a social political construct based on physical characteristics such as hair texture, bone structure, skin color. Okay, that is race. If you haven't watched the first part of Race, the Power of an Illusion, it is a great resource in understanding race. They describe a lot about race and pseudoscience and all of that. That was part of it. Okay, so next step in this is, what is racism? Any thoughts about racism? So we talked about what race is. What about racism? What are your thoughts on that? Also in the glossary of the anti-racism policy. Yeah, Davis.
I think at least one element of it is ascribing value, higher or lower value, to groups of people based on the characteristics, outlined in the definition of race that you just showed.
Thank you for that. And can I ask a follow-up, Davis? You said, like, how would you describe what is that? Can you be more specific?
I mean, I guess kind of getting back to some of the thoughts that we heard earlier, like the etymology of the word race, right? Is it by using the term race and like that term coming up, what, like something around 500-600 years ago in that range, it creates otherness between people that look different, you know, ascribing different races, that there's this great degree of difference between somebody like with, you know, light skin who like looks like me, or somebody with darker skin and curlier hair who maybe doesn't look quite so much like me, and ascribing a higher value to one group and a lower value to another group. Historically, typically, the folks who look like me get ascribed the higher value, the other folks get ascribed the lower value. And the use of that term race implies that there is some fundamental, deep difference, right? Like two different species almost, because that's like definitively, that's what that term race would mean, right? Like, you know, a cat and a dog are different races, like in the more kind of scientific definition, whereas the socio-political definition that you went over, like you said, it's real because it's this idea that's been around in society for several hundred years now, but as a biological thing, it is inaccurate at best.
Thank you for engaging with that follow-up, Davis. Appreciate it. So yeah, I mean, racism is essentially talking about there's a hierarchy that exists, and again, this is like I know that there are people who will debate this, and we can debate it, but it's looking at patterns. If we were to look at patterns and policies in these United States over time, there is a pattern that occurs across race. I mean, you can even see, and if at some point y'all want to do an activity, we can look at like different aspects of a timeline, but it's looking at patterns. Over time, those patterns have been representative of a hierarchy. I mean, if you had to describe the folks who wrote our Constitution, I mean, how would you describe their physical attributes?
White, older.
Men.
Yeah, so it's like this hierarchy exists not only along race, but along a lot of other aspects too. Okay, and that's what we mean when we're talking about a system, right? A system of race. And Davis, thank you for sharing what you did. It's like there's a hierarchy that was based, advantaging white people within this system. And the social political movement of other folks of color basically like could move up or down this hierarchy based on whatever the need for the political or social will was at any given time in our history.
Well, if you look at something that most people can understand, and that is housing, and you look at redlining.
Right.
And banks were very involved in allowing for mortgages to folks that were more from one group than they were from another group.
Right.
I mean, that was so clear, and there's so much research on that I think that helps some people understand. What do you mean?
Yeah.
It's pretty clear why maybe there's not as large a population of individuals, any individual of color or folks that have been marginalized that do not have ownership of housing.
Right.
Why was that?
Yeah.
Banks were complicit in saying, oh, okay, if you checked off that box, you're not eligible for this support from us.
Right. It was about access and opportunity.
Absolutely.
It's creating access and opportunity, patterns of who had access and opportunity. And I also want to note that this arrangement, it doesn't mean that every white person has privilege and advantages, right? I know that there are a lot of white people who don't feel that. And we're not saying that every single person has this experience. We're saying the way the system was designed, it was constructed with this hierarchy on a repeat of patterns over time. Right? And the thing is, if you really look at it, this is not actually working for most people in this country, right? It was like a few years ago, the Pew Foundation came out with a report that the only demographic before COVID with increasing mortality rates in this country, if you had to guess, who do you think it was?
Whites.
White men.
I was gonna say.
White men, and they added white women to that, right? So it's saying that like if this design was constructed in a way to advantage white people, it doesn't mean that it's actually working out that way, right? There are patterns. Anyway, it's complicated, but the point is it's not really working out for many of us in this design.
Probably one of the most prevalent racist policies is education funding around property taxes.
Mm.
Because that
Yeah,
allows for a huge disparity of educational funding, even within the same state.
yeah, even Brown versus the Board of Education, you know, it was like, that was actually, there's a great podcast I can share on that, which is, it just sort of demystifies some of what was actually happening in Brown versus Board of Education, which was not what my understanding of it was. It basically eliminated a lot of Black teachers especially, who are also centers of their community, from being able to continue to work in education. So anyway, a lot to talk about.
Right.
So we're gonna like put a pin in this. We talked about what racism is.
Yep.
Racism, again, by this way of thinking about it, and again, this was directly from the anti-racism policy. This was not my language. This was not my choice of definition. This was what is in the policy. And from what we just talked about, right, it's looking at those patterns over time. That is this hierarchy that privileges, again, not every white person feels like they have some advantage and privilege in this. We certainly know that economics, like socioeconomics, play a huge part, as well as other identities. Okay, so with this, we can also unpack a little bit, if you go to the next slide. Which is like when we're thinking about all the ways, again, this is also included in the anti-racism policy, is the ways that racism can show up. It can be institutional, right? There can be policies, there can be practices, there can be procedures. This is like, you know, the US government has made lots of different policies over the years. These would be examples of institutional racism.
Voting laws.
Voting laws, right? Cultural racism, they're the narratives that persist around groups of people. Cultural narratives are what somehow justify individual acts of racism. There's a lot, again, to unpack in this. The most timely example I can offer is what's happening in Israel and Palestine. We are seeing the impacts of all three of these kinds of racism playing out, right? There are culturally racist narratives about who Palestinians are that dehumanizes them to the point where individuals act out in racist ways. We wouldn't see a 6-year-old boy in this country, you know, being murdered by somebody for being Palestinian if these culturally racist ideas, right, and these institutional acts and policies all weren't working together. So these all work together, they reinforce, like, I mean, you can think of lots of different examples, right, about how is it that we have spent so much money as a nation building a wall between the United States and Mexico if we didn't all also have culturally racist narratives that exist about Mexicans, right? It just wouldn't, it would be such a dissonance. These things work together, they reinforce each other, they're in, yeah, anyway. So these are the different ways that racism can play out. Thinking about, maybe I'll pause for just a second there and see if there's questions, comments.
Yes, so one example is that you just did is the wall, which I agree it's very racist to build a wall in two countries. That really doesn't need to have a wall. But how do you separate that cultural racism from the racism of skin tone?
It's all part of it. It's all interconnected.
Cultural racism. Okay, so you're not talking about cultural racism, you're talking about the cultural narrative of racism.
Yes.
Okay.
So racism can be cultural. You can have cultural racism, which is about narratives, ideas, beliefs, values about groups of people.
Of a certain color.
Yes.
Okay,
Or gender.
Or
I mean, you
religion.
can, yeah, this can play out in different ways. When we're talking about racism, though, it's specific to race.
right. So
So we have culturally
cultural against
racist.
women then couldn't be.
that would not be
Not
racist, that would be sexist.
Sexist,
But
yes.
we have that too. Like you can
Yeah,
use
I'm
the
not saying
same
we don't.
institutional, cultural, individual framework
Right.
for looking at how sexism plays out.
So I'm just defining your chart there, that institutional, cultural, individual aren't types of racism, but those are structures of racism that,
I think, yes.
okay,
I mean, you can have individual acts of racism.
yes.
So that's where individual comes from, right? You can, but the thing is, and we get stuck there. We get stuck arguing about who's racist, who's not, like all this.
Yeah.
And it actually distracts us from recognizing how this is playing out in cultural and institutional ways. We're never gonna address the ways that institutional racism shows up if we're only having a conversation that's individual to individual.
And I think that's the first thing people think of
It is.
when I'm not a racist,
That's how we tend to
because,
think of it.
you know,
Yep.
because I didn't do anything
Yeah.
bad. I didn't have any of those.
And the system of racism doesn't even need us to be racist
Right.
because it is racist, so it's gonna continue to perpetuate, and the status quo of those policies and systems are racism. We don't have to do anything for racism to persist.
Well,
I think
we have to
Davis,
exist though.
Davis,
Yes,
had a question. I'll let him go
Davis.
before.
Okay.
yes.
No, that's good. I put my hand down.
My comment about institutional racism is, there are policies, earlier you mentioned about there are policies in place that literally promote institutional racism.
Right.
As you just said, we don't even have to participate in it. There are already policies that take
Yeah.
care of that.
Yeah.
Which is why I think that we as a board really need to, pay attention to the policies that we do put in place. Because they have these can have these unintentional effects that we don't even see it because we're looking at it, through black and white lenses
Yeah.
and just saying, no, it's really deeper than a black and white lens.
Absolutely, and that's a great segue into looking at the anti-racism policy and where we're at with that. So we'll just keep rolling along, and I think the next slide just is lifting the definition, right? We talked about what racism is, so what anti-racism is, and maybe we can just scroll through if you don't mind. Because I think this one was also right from the policy, right? Is the practice of identifying, challenging, and changing the value structures and behaviors that perpetuate systemic racism. So it's looking at where are we disrupting? Where are we disrupting the status quo? Otherwise, those patterns are what are going to continue to repeat. So if we look at the anti-racism policy through these same lenses, right, through institutional, through cultural, and through individual, then we can get a sense of like, are we actually doing the work to disrupt it on all three levels? And so that's how I structured this report, and I'll just share, if you don't mind advancing another slide or two. So this is if we were to look at everything that was in the anti-racism policy, some of the themes, right? Some of the themes around institutional were to provide ongoing capacity building, training, and support, right? Create systems for reporting, tracking, repairing harm. These are all things that can be done at the institutional level. Cultural level is building and sustaining safer, braver spaces, deepening engagement with families and communities, right? Ensuring that curriculum is inclusive, representative of diverse groups, all the things that have to do with beliefs, narratives, all of that stuff is part of cultural. On an individual level, what the anti-racism policy I think is seeking to do is to help develop help put into practice, and so that individuals are embodying some of these anti-racist understanding and skills, and so that across the SU we are understanding and using common language and an equity or reflective filter. So this was just a way of looking at, again, it's like, what is racism and how is this anti-racism actually disrupting what it is? And this is a way to break it down and to see, are we actually doing all of these things? Because oftentimes people can jump, like the institutional policies, you can see them. Cultural is a little more nebulous. And cultural is a harder one to actually name and address. And so it's important to really lift that up. Okay, does this make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
Why don't we see the next slide shows, okay, so where are we at in all of these areas? And we're actually doing a lot of things in these areas, right? One, I was just talking about how it's like our tracking and reporting system, right? We now have like EduClimber, which you can sort by demographics. So there are ways for us to now actually look at how like students are doing right along and actually pull out demographics, because before we weren't able to actually look at that. We couldn't see, where those differences were happening. So just a number of things happening. I mentioned we're having these school-based Monday meetings, exploring the development of like an equity ticket or bias incident reporting that could work collaboratively with the hazing, harassment, bullying reporting, trying to have some conversations and figure out what we can do there. Looking at how we can track progress on the equity audit over time, training professional development, that's all part of institutional. So this is all ongoing, right? Cultural, we're looking at, this is where that alignment, Elizabeth, comes in with Act 1, is looking at how are we teaching to these new inclusive educational quality standards. There's a course that the Education Justice Coalition of Vermont is leading to help do that. So we're going to participate in that and see how we can continue to dovetail all these things. It's basically a way of making sure that curriculum is more inclusive and equitable. So there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot that's happening that we're exploring. Y'all can see on the slide. It connects to even some of the work that we're doing with Center for Educational Leadership and centering student stories. Right? That's going to help. That's going to help change the culture. It's going to help us create more inclusive narratives about people's experiences, especially about students who are furthest from justice. And then on an individual level, again, it's looking at, this also has alignment with things that we're doing with Leader in Me. There are all the habits that we're integrating into the schools, right, that connect directly to what we would want to see, I think, from this anti-racism policy. So anyway, this is a lot of work in progress, in process. And then I think that there's a lot of information here. I know we're already at like about 25 minutes. So I just want to pause, like, I don't know, check in. Where are folks at? What are you thinking?
28 minutes and 17 seconds.
Colleen, what's up?
I just want to thank you for this material. I really went through the references or the resources material was really great for me, and I really like this list of what you're doing and how things are going, and I appreciate you. And that's it. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. You will definitely be missed. Elizabeth.
Just still got a little while.
And I see you, Rebecca, too.
I also wanted to, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I also wanted to say thank you. I've been really hoping for this, the kind of cross-tracking of all these different efforts. And it's really nice to be able to see it all in one place. And so thank you.
Thank you for the encouragement to do that update as we were required to do in the policy. And there's more to come from this, like hoping from this, there's that next level step, which is like institutional. What does this mean for teachers, it's like, just keep it for students, keep breaking it out a little bit more so we can see how that stuff all lines up. Rebecca, did you have something?
Yeah, I also want to thank you, but I'm looking forward to that next step. I'm looking forward to kind of getting an understanding of how, that Wethersfield, conversation, comes out, and the Heartland and Windsor and so on and so forth. I also want to thank you because I really look at our strategic plan, and it was a plan that was put together by our community, our teachers, our superintendents, and what I'm seeing and hearing right now is something that is clearly in our strategic plan. This was something that our community decided this is where we want to go with our educational system. And I just want to remind everyone, if you just look at strategic plan number 2, 4, where it says the SASU will conduct a diversity audit to determine if gaps exist between SU policies/practices, SASU portrait of and a healthy culture. And you know, that whole piece, explore the need for a DEI statement that represents the SU's stance and issues related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and if appropriate, adopt it as a board policy, which we've done through, but it's coming alive now. I mean, you know, it's like we've had these conversations, we've had these steps, we just continue to be moving, and it's coming alive, and so I think and I know that you'll say it's not me alone, but it's, you know, breath is being put into it. So I do want to thank you and those folks at the different schools that are working alongside of you and our superintendent to bring this professional development to us.
Yeah.
Okay, a
Yeah,
quick
thank
input
you.
from Davis, and then we are going to move on.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll make it quick, Bill. No, race is an incredibly difficult subject matter to condense into 20, 25 minutes. And I think that this was I think you did a fantastic job with that. And I just wanted to kind of throw in my observation that I appreciate the amount of intersectionality in this approach to explaining how the construct of race has impacted society and will continue to impact society today, and how essentially, without getting too long-winded about it, by applying policies like this anti-racism policy, it has intersectional benefits as well when you are addressing where people come from, where like their lived experience is coming from, you know, meeting people where they are at. And race being such a large sort of monolithic construct, I think that is the domain in which it makes sense for this to come from, but it also, you have the ability in this kind of policy to address things like economic disadvantage, you know, like any host of other kinds of marginalization that, you know, when we can effectively address those things, then we are better able in our educational settings, and I think in society at large, to really meet people as people and like have, I think, the kind of more equitable, egalitarian society that I think that, you know, folks really want to exist in and want to see happen. So I think, again, it's a tough concept, very difficult to plug into 20 minutes, but I think that this is a good start, and I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jan.
Thank you.
Good?
Yes.
All right.
Quick question here, Ash, because are you going to jump into procedures?
I'm going to jump into this. Yes, I am.
Okay, so I'm having issues finding the procedures.
They're not in the portal until they're reviewed at the board level. Then they get added to the policy that they go with.
So how can we read them ahead of time if they're not?
They should be in the packet.
They are in the
Yeah,
packet.
they should be in your board packet each time.
Agenda.
Where the hell is the agenda? Here it is.
Okay,
There you go.
okay,
Okay.
Once it's approved, then we
okay.
throw it
Well,
in.
Thank you for that.
they don't get approved by the board. They
Once they get
have questions or
requests.
comments. Yeah,
Thank
certainly.
you for that
Yeah.
direction.
So these two are pretty, they're not that complicated, but I'm happy to take questions or comments if you have any. So one is the, am I sharing the right screen? Yes. Procedures on home study students. And the second is procedures for student attendance. So those are bound by some truancy protocols and policies.
Okay, most of this is dictated by law.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got through
Yeah.
the screen right
These are
now.
two easy ones to write. So, and if you have. Just wait for a second. Are there any comments or questions from people that saw them already? Yes. You're welcome. That's my computer.
I'm assuming the ADM codes are appropriately applied to all of these?
Yeah. Yeah.
What is it, 0.03 for athletics? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna move on, but you're welcome to reach out. So this is just a kind of an FYI and to feel if the SU board is interested. The Mount Scottney School Board has been working on some enduring materials, which I think is a wonderful idea. Davis really spearheaded a process for appointment of board members when a board member resigns, and those are being kept in a board enduring materials folder in their portal, in that Mount Scottney's board portal. So is that something the SU board would like to pursue as well? And if so, we can share resources if appropriate, or they can live in the SU portal if they are applicable to all our boards. Just wanted to get a feel for your thoughts on that. It looks like Davis would like to comment. That's okay.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to shock anyone with this, but I think it's a good idea. The other, the other thing I would throw in there, and kind of the high level of where this connects with the defining some of the more variable elements of that process for appointment. I think that something else that kind of connects to this is, as the Mount Scottney School Board did when a sort of novel process came up or something where there is that variability. I think it would make sense also for the SU board to engage in similar practice when a process that doesn't come up as part of regular everyday business or monthly business hits us and we have to approach it. I think even if it goes swimmingly and there are not problems, it's worth just doing a quick, at the very least, doing a plus delta of it, in a meeting, saying what went well, what didn't go well. Are there any kind of gray areas that popped up where there isn't really good enduring materials available online from states or agencies or other municipalities, where we might want to generate some of our own enduring materials? Because that process was really the genesis of doing this at the school district level. I generally think it's good practice. It's something that organizations of all types use all the time, just to make sure that those gaps aren't persisting when they arise. I just wanted to throw a plug for that too.
Yep.
So where would this board enduring materials, where would it live?
It would live in, for now, the Mount Scottney School Board. When you click on that and you go in there, I call them folders. My husband says they're files, but whatever, they look like folders to me. There will be one called enduring materials, and they'll live in there.
Okay.
So if the SU board would like to do that as well, we put one in the SU portal for access. The other thing that I asked Lori to put in there, Elizabeth and I did a training this spring on open meeting law and public records, which was very informative. So I've asked Lori to put that whole slide deck in there because it applies to open meeting law and public records. So think about it. I don't think it hurts. I think it would be great to even have some materials on onboarding new board members. What do we do? What's our process? What materials do we give them, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to move on because
Quick comment.
Anne Marie?
Based upon
Bill,
state
oh, sorry.
law, I don't believe that within the procedure, whether an absentee is excused or unexcused, it doesn't matter.
Okay, sorry. My brain was moved forward here,
Yeah.
it's still there. In the student attendance procedure?
In the attendance procedure based upon state law.
Okay,
That 5 days of unexcused, that has been updated in state law. And it may not be actually state law, but maybe in Vermont School Board procedure. I don't know which it is, but
okay. Is it updated in the truancy protocol, the Windsor County truancy protocol?
probably not.
I don't think it is, because that's what we used. Yeah, okay. I'll touch base with you after, Bill, to get the details on that. Okay. Is it okay if Anne Marie has her hand up?
Yeah,
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I really like the idea of having those materials sort of kept in one place where we can all refer back to them, because it sort of seems like we're always kind of reinventing the wheel every time something comes up. So it'd be great to have a resource you could just point to and know what you got to do.
Thanks, Anne Marie. Davis has his hand up, Bill, is that okay?
sure.
Oh, thanks, Bill. Gotta wait for you to recognize me. Yeah, I just wanted to throw out the mental model around that too, that I kind of forgot to mention before. It's really institutional memory, right? I think that it can be challenging on smallish local boards like this when individuals end up with a lot of this knowledge and we end up leaning on them without actually recording it. I think we've seen the difficulties that can come when a member of the board either doesn't run again, loses an election, or resigns, if we're not preserving those materials and those processes in some written, accessible ways, not only for the board, but for members of the community. It creates issues, right? It creates misunderstanding. It creates wasteful, poor processes. So that's another way I think of thinking. It might be, in my mind, that's maybe the optimal way of thinking, is that we're building institutional memory that transcends the individuals in this space. So when at some point none of us are here and some other folks are doing this, there's some precedent or something you can reference that says, hey, this may not be outlined clearly in statute, and the AOE might not have a tool for this, but we have gone through this. We've done a little plus delta, and here are our recommendations for how this process X, Y, or Z should run.
Yeah. Thanks, Davis. Okay. Angie's going to do a quick curriculum implementation update.
Is it okay? I just talk right from here. You can hear me okay? So these slides are, I slightly updated, I think, from the end of September, our board meeting then, but I just wanted to give you some updates on how it's going. Many thanks to Patty Gray, who worked tirelessly over the summer to make sure that our materials were delivered. We're still dealing with some materials that haven't been received, but that's more about we ordered 10% more, and we need more because some schools got a lot more kids than we thought they would. So that's not a bad problem to have. We have created a support system through our building-based instructional coaches. Currently, the position at Heartland is still open, so Patty and I are helping support the Heartland teachers as well. And what that means is that we meet monthly with the instructional coaches. Patty meets regularly with the instructional coaches to talk about the program and issues with the program that are coming up on how to best support teachers as they implement. The new program, Core Knowledge Language Arts, is being implemented K-5, and Eureka Squared, which is the next edition of Eureka, is being implemented K-8. We offered a day of training on August 28th. We offered a half-day building opportunity for cross-building collaboration on October 20th. And we also offered weekly synergy achievement teams, which was a coined phrase to describe how that time is to be used, working in building-based teams to support one another as we try to figure out what's the best way to implement this program. Now, I want to be totally clear. It is hard. And our teachers are doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and they are asking a lot of questions. They're noticing when things are not working and when things are working. And I'm very proud to say that they are speaking up about it. And we are doing the best we can right now to try to support this implementation, because not only does it take, I think the common wisdom is that it's 3 years when you implement a new program before you really start to see it feeling like it's actually taking hold. We are dealing with kiddos that, 3 or 4 years ago was COVID and the COVID disruption, and the levels in a classroom that a classroom always had a level of, a wide range of student abilities. That range is even broader than ever before. Mm-hmm. And so some of the challenges that have been brought to our attention is that it's really hard to figure out how to support students who are 2, 3, 4 grades below where the curriculum is expecting them to be able to perform. So that's the big challenge that we're dealing with right now. Synergy teams, we have responded to feedback from teachers who were feeling that the weekly meetings were too much. So we decided to focus only on language arts implementation, especially since Eureka Squared is not new. If you taught here last year, you taught with Eureka Math, or you were a pilot teacher. So Eureka Squared is not completely different from what was there last year. So we're focusing on CKLA, and we are meeting building-based team groups once a month, and then having a monthly training based on a topic that is pertinent to the staff, specific to the program.
Thanks, Ange. You taking questions, Phil?
Yes, go ahead, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Apologize for being camera off, but I've got a shoddy internet connection, unfortunately. But a couple of questions. One is will there be a point at which the board will be able to receive a synopsis or some kind of presentation of what is in the new curricula? And also,
That would be totally up to the board.
I'd like to request that. And also, I would like to know how, when you're implementing a new ELA curriculum, how that dovetails with the anti-racism curriculum stuff. Whether that training is going on simultaneously or in conjunction, or how does that work?
I can share
Yeah.
something that we've been talking about is like next summer, it'd be great if we could bring teachers, pay a bunch of teachers who have the interest in coming together for a week before school starts to actually provide feedback on like, here's what's missing, like here's where it doesn't align right with the new education quality standards, like here's this piece that just doesn't fit, right? Can we replace this with something else that aligns better with our desire to teach more equitable and inclusive curriculum? So we're hoping, like, that stuff I've been talking to some teachers about. I know there was big feedback on Friday, so I think it's going to be over time. We're going to figure out how we can support teachers in identifying some of those promising practices and ways that they're integrating more diverse perspectives and equity inclusion into the curriculum.
I think it's
Definitely talking
an
about that.
ongoing conversation as well, especially since after a year, we don't expect our teachers will have implemented everything in the program. It's just not possible. And so after 2 years and 3 years, every year they use it, they're going to find ways that, what works really well, what's not working well, where they need to beef up resources or where they need to change what's in the program and become more adept at identifying what is best for our kids based on our goals.
Megan, do you have something quick?
Yeah, I don't know how quick it is, but if it can't be answered now, that's okay, but I want to get it out there. I am nervous, like when you say the range is broader, like that is really kind of scary to me to think about, that these students are like getting that far behind, and what does that look like? And are we asking for more support in the budget to be able to support these teachers and students in this? I guess it's concerning to me.
Yes, the supporting instructional coaching, which is essentially on-the-job training, on-the-job support. Right now, currently, we have the equivalent of one instructional coach at Wethersfield. We have 2 half-time instructional coaches, one in math and one in language arts. At Windsor School, we have the equivalent of 1.5 instructional coaches. 2 of those are title funded, half-time instructional coaches, half-time interventionists, and then we have a locally funded half-time interventionist, half-time instructional coach. Heartland has a half-time instructional coach. Instructional coaching is one of the best ways that we can support teachers to support children so that they can use the most effective instructional practices in their classrooms. And the more we support instructional coaching and build that model, I think that is our answer to helping our students get where they need to go.
I think one thing to be careful of when you start looking at a a broadening difference between students is, especially in a beginning of a cycle of a new assessment platform. Is the difference due to broadening skill levels between systems, between students, or is it a broadening difference between students because of improved assessment strategies? And my guess is you have not used STAR enough to really
No, not yet.
decide
not
that.
yet.
And I mean, and then also understanding how the program and STAR work together and
Right.
How we can find out what certain parts of CKLA really show up as improvements in STAR, or the other way around.
I just want to say something really quick, Bill. It is really quick, Bill. Can I?
Yeah.
All right. I just hope that Katie is involved in this conversation, because I hear instructional support, and I know that you're looking at students with various needs. And to some degree, I know that they're different, but on the other hand, you know, I don't clearly understand those differences. So I just think it's important to really be able to, you know, not suddenly have this incredible amount of instructional support, which I think is important, without having a conversation with Kate, you know, in terms of, these are our students. These are the needs of all of our
That would
students.
be our,
To answer really quick, I'm involved in all of the continuum movement. So, and
the Center multi-tiered system of support.
yes, very much so.
So with that, even though Elizabeth has a raised hand.
I have,
and if it's
I have a
okay-
very quick question. Angie,
Okay.
Angie, you listed the schools that have instructional support coaches.
Oh.
Does Albert
ADS.
Bridge, because you didn't?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I forgot. Sorry, Elizabeth. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Albert Bridge has a model where they have instructional coaches who are working beyond the contracted obligation and meeting with teachers outside the contracted hours for a stipend. So there are 3 wonderful educators there who have raised their hands to do that work, and they're supporting their colleagues in that fashion.
That's great.
Thank you. I'm wondering, seeing we have transitioned to MTSS, if it would be all right with Larry if we hit up Katie quickly first.
Whatever you want.
Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, that wasn't the end, but I'm just gonna tell you, it's fine. The question of the month, results are there for you to look at.
Okay,
The next question, I'm gonna fix the question that I botched this month.
you botched.
Well, yeah, I think I botched
You
it.
did? Yes.
So it's gonna, just because I wanted to get it right, I just want to show you.
And you didn't respond to my email.
Yes, I did.
Really?
Yeah, I said, yeah, I screwed that up, Bill. I'm
Oh,
gonna fix
okay.
it this month.
I didn't
Unless I didn't hit
see
send.
it.
So I want to make sure it's right, and then we can move on. So
Yeah.
this is, we really want to know what they're using, and I asked what their preferences were. And then we're going to add on how often they're using PowerSchool.
Yeah.
Because we thought that was important.
Yeah.
So that's good. I'm going to pass this out. We're not going to discuss it tonight. It's a strategic plan report card, how we're doing on each of the strategies. And if you don't like this format, let me know and we'll do it a different way. So I will give these to you and I'll pull up Katie's report. And Bill, I appreciate you keeping us on track. It's hard when there's lots of us. All right, Katie, you're on. Let me share the screen.
Quick questions can turn into long answers.
I know. I got that.
Thank you, Larry.
All right, so this is our first of 2 reports for this year. Our slogan, as to follow along with the SU's belonging, our office staff came up with this earlier, partly because we keep saying to each other, we've got this. So we've got this together, all students, all staff, all staff, all students. We're still trying to figure out how to put that on t-shirts. And learning without limits. So this year, we're trying to encompass that and put things into action. Pretty exciting. My next slide, every year, the state of Vermont sends out a parent survey. They mail it to us, to parents. They've asked us to make sure that we let every parent know. So this is the results for 2022. We may have the results for 2023 sometime, anywhere between November and February is when they usually come out. So I wanted to highlight some of the aspects. This is a scale from 1 to 4. Nancy, if you want to look closer, you can.
I can't read a thing of it.
So, they've toned it down from previous years. Mostly it's about parent engagement and how we are incorporating families in our process, students in our process, how they understand it, how they feel supported. Lots about communication. Overall, we did really well. The scores here on that first page are high 3s, mid to high 3s. On our next slide, and I tried really hard to figure out how to link the PDF to this, but I couldn't manage to do it. There were a few of the areas that we flagged this year for improvement. So I'll read the ones that have the arrows. My child's special education staff school district provides opportunities for me to strengthen my knowledge about pre-K through 12 special education issues, such as parent training seminars, information sessions, newsletters, etc. And one thing I should mention, this is every student on an IEP, whether they are in one of our buildings or they are in a school choice of Hartford or Hanover or in a placement that we've put them. So it's every child who receives services in special education. So this reflects many different parent views for maybe schools that we as a board sitting here, you are not necessarily responsible for their educational programming. So that ended up being, we had 2.56 on that scale. And the second one there that we flagged, my child's special education staff school district connects me to pre-K through grade 12 community partners and organizations for additional resources to extend learning opportunities across environments. That also came out, that was in the mid 2s as well. And then the last one, which was 18, I was informed about this survey before it arrived, which was better than the year prior. We had 41.7%. So we turned these 3 into our focus for a little bit for last year. We were already on the trajectory and we're definitely continuing it for this year. And that trajectory, I'll tell if you do the next slide, Christine. Thanks. This is one of the big pieces of the survey that we're really proud of. Parents reported that our SU facilitated parental involvement. So overall, when I came in FY 1920, school year 1920, excuse me, it's late and I've had a lot of coffee today. 2019, 2020. You might remember we had a little pandemic start and closed school. They mailed the survey out that spring and expected people to respond. They didn't. So we had 26% of our families of them sent out that facilitated. It was not good. Plus it was the previous survey. They've now shortened it and made it much more palatable. So last year, the FY 21 school year, we were 78.38% of facilitated parental involvement. And then this FY 22, we exceeded the statewide target of 86%. So part of that has been some of the changes that we've made, which is the next slide. What are we doing as a result? So each spring, we are sending out emails to every parent. I'm not harassing them, I promise, but there's at least 2 that come from me saying, hey, this is coming to an inbox near you. You can fill it out online. You can fill it out through the mail that comes through. We're asking principals are putting it in their newsletter. Christine put it in her newsletter. If they can't get one, they email the state. So, and I know people are getting them because they're commenting on it, which is great. So we're trying to do that. And we're also not muddying the waters by giving out any other surveys during the year. Because this one that I just showed you is high stakes for us. It counts towards our monitoring and how the state measures how we're doing.
That was my question.
Yes.
Okay.
So I have been asked to send out others and I'm like, I don't want to, because if we do, then maybe people won't answer this one. And this one counts, it comes back on the data that we receive back for our local determination that we get every year. And the questions are good, we can use them, it's good stuff.
Sorry,
oh, wait,
is that too fast?
too fast, I have so not got through most of that. So those are the first two bullets. Last year, we started offering some coffee hours. We're trying to find a sweet spot for that, Special Needs Support Center, Special Olympics. We are looking to expand those offerings and connect people to more community resources. That's probably one of the biggest things we do individually at meetings, is talk to parents about what's out there. Especially middle school, high school, sort of those transition times, and our early elementary folks, and that'll come in a little bit here. High school students attending are now, we're really working on them attending the meetings. And we're starting a small revolution in one class, where they're now convincing everybody else to go. So that students being engaged means parents are engaged, and the feedback from that has been great this year. Working on self-determined learning with peers, working towards peer mentoring and special education. Those are the big pieces of connecting more kids and families to other kids and families. And that's one of the things that families have asked for individually at meetings. The feeling of isolation, not feeling connected to others, is something that we are working on, which ties in here. We are in the very beginning stages. Last year we started talking to families about this, creating a parent advisory council, except I'd like to call it the Special Education Family Collaboration Council, because many of our families are not comprised primarily of parents in a traditional sense that we think that's parents. It's grandparents, aunts, uncles, guardians, you name it, we've got it. And the feedback from families has been, do we have time to collaborate? We want to work with each other as a community, and we also want to work with the school and to make things better. So I have families that are interested. We have some documents we're starting. There are 2 started in the state, one up north and one to our south in Brattleboro. So I've been talking to both, but sort of how they got this going, and it would be family-led. So we'll get some more of that within the next couple of months as we figure out how to move forward with those, with some community partners helping us build that council. So, and that hits on one of the areas, sorry, go forward fast and fancy, one of the areas on our survey. And the other and this is where some of the community, there's a lot more community agencies out there for collaboration with our middle school to high school students. And I had 3 meetings last week with different partners, and we're going to continue partnering with them as well. So looking at our family engagement survey and those results, kind of backtracking the community partnerships and making sure families feel as though they're part of the process, but also part of the larger picture of our community is our goal. And it'll be a few years goal. Any questions about that?
The high school students attending their meetings, I think that's pretty awesome, pretty important also. And you're right, if the students are coming home and talking about their, that connection, parents are going to listen and hear. I think that's a powerful.
And some of the kids who have gone, the other day I walked in and one kid burst into the room and said, I had to go to a meeting with Miss Katie, and you know what we did? And told everybody. It was hysterical. And it was great because then the other kids are like, wait, we can do that? And it's something I've done for years, but it had not, and maybe it's COVID and everything else that kind of hit, it fell by the wayside. We're working on making sure middle school students are invited, and it's always in parent permission, but the older students would like to work with newly identified students in the process, as well as younger students on how they can be more involved, so we can do it with them versus at them. That's my line I tell kids to convince them to come, is that we want to do it with you, not at you. And even if you come and you don't say a word, you're there and you know, and most of the time they all end up talking anyway, which is pretty cool.
Well, I think it's important because I remember so many meetings where some students would be there and the adults would be talking about what is it that they should be doing, and many times the students were not saying a word, and I'm thinking like, so who's going back to the classroom to do what, you know? And So I'm really glad to hear that they are engaged and they're being asked to participate.
It's pretty important, and it is part, you've heard all last year and this fall when we passed our transition plans. It's a large part of those transition plans is learning your advocacy skills for yourself as you get ready for your post-high school years. So it all ties in together. Our next slide. Let's see, I can't remember what it is. There was a request to just take a look at our early childhood data over time. And so this turned out to be kind of an interesting task. Betsy, my administrative assistant, and I were trying to figure out a way to sort our data. So our core early MTSS system in early childhood involves, and it's pretty seamless, and we've been doing it for years, our early childhood staff, here, Nancy, right there. Our early childhood team meets weekly to discuss all the students, which is wonderful. They're a very tight-knit group. Our partner programs also identify students, and if we're already there, we pick up kids anyway. So whether a formal referral has been made or not, and we're tracking progress, it's been worked really well throughout the years.
Would this be Triple E?
Yes.
Okay.
So early ECP, early childhood programs, and then early child special education. We've got our new letters for instead of AAA. I know. Welcome to new acronyms. We do frequently have students referred by their physicians, their teachers, grandparents actually frequently will call and help get the ball rolling for their children or their grandchildren, even though their children are involved, which is pretty cool. And then they go through Child Find and our usual evaluation process. Even if they don't qualify, we typically end up picking them up for services anyway, informally. That includes observation, consultations, evaluations, referral to specialists, because sometimes it's not us, it's other things that the family needed. We sort of serve as that clearinghouse. Then we are working on services like we do for a third grader, services for a predetermined amount of time and track with our data. It's a very small number of kids every year, maybe one or two that kind of fall into that camp. But what we thought we would do is we started tracking, and I realized we went up from the students we've had in early childhood special ed. FY20 was 25 to go to now, FY23, we have 34 students identified in early childhood special ed. We've looked at students who have exited during those years. So within, we're going up in our numbers. One of the things, and I believe it was at an earlier meeting last year, looking at students over time that exited, and for what, let's say if a fifth grader exited this year, did they receive early childhood services? And may that show that there was some success because early intervention showed they exited. What we are going to start doing, because there was not an easy way to sort this data, believe me, we tried to look at exits, is starting now when students exit, we are going to have another column saying whether they received early childhood special ed services or not, or EMTSS services. For example, this last year, 12 students graduated who received special ed services. Only one of those students ever received early childhood services. So we were able to do a little bit to see if we could kind of tease out the data. But moving forward, we'll be able to have a third column looking at students exited along any point and see what if they received early childhood services. Any questions on the early MTSS?
I have a question. I think it was last year or the year before that I heard or understood that there was a higher percentage of students that were either that entered the school system that were either on the spectrum or which meant that they all received an IEP, correct? And I'm just wondering if there's been a change in that this year. Did that just kind of remain neutral, or did it go up, or did it go down?
We still see a bubble of students who are early identified as being on the spectrum. That's still, we had an exceptional bubble of the same age group come through. The numbers being there that whether students are moving in or come up through early childhood, we're actually identifying several as we come through. I think I mentioned before, we now have the capacity to do our own screening and evaluation using the same tools. One of the tests that Dr. Hitchcock uses, we trained our school psychologists to use it, so we don't have to wait for a DHMC appointment, which is great.
Oh, yeah.
For those, especially those 3s and 4s that come in that may not have had any early childhood experience prior. So I think the bubble doesn't seem to be as pronounced in one grade, but it's certainly, we are seeing an increase in students identified better screening tools and families being able to follow through with it. I think it's been super helpful.
But I believe that if a child is identified on the spectrum, they automatically are identified as an IEP.
No, it's interesting with developmental delay for early childhood, it's more likely that they would versus another delay because it's considered a different category.
Yeah.
So it is much higher likelihood. But yes, we do have students, especially as they're older, who may be identified on the spectrum who do not qualify. Although we now have some more measures that we can actually go for with our new evaluation tools, our new evaluation requirements for functional skills, more so than just academic. So we've expanded that. Okay, next slide, Christine, I think, and I think it might be our last one, if I remember correctly. Language. Christine, the last one is a language one.
Yeah.
So, there we go. I am not Brittany, I'm just gonna put that out there. I tried really hard to make this, and I say that with lots of admiration, because she always manages to make everything look super clear and crisp. I wanted to start thinking, we've been working with students, so one of the things, I'm working with Kirsten Hinton, who's our SLP, at the Windsor School, teaching a group of middle and high school students social communication each week. And we're talking about social communication and language and how our language matters. And in Tracy, and sort of as we have become more aware of language use, wanted to thinking about, have everybody just putting out there how we're framing, how we're talking about individuals with disabilities. And even as I did this, there's some inconsistencies. The movement within talking about individuals with disabilities, you hear a lot, person first, person first. You talk about there's an individual with a disability, like Fred receives special education services versus SPED student Fred. That you'll notice the first one says Sally is autistic, and there's a star next to it, an asterisk for and autistic Sally. So there are 3 groups, individuals, categories of people, or affinity groups, however we want to kind of put that. Individuals who identify as being on the spectrum, individuals who are deaf or hard of hearing, or individuals with different sightedness, tend to, because those 3 affect how they view the world, tend to be using their ability first versus person first. Autistic Sally, I'm blind student, I'm a hearing impaired student, because and even within the community, that tends to be the majority of individuals would prefer to be ability first, then person. But even within that, there's some argument, or argument's not the right word, there may be some individuals who are not comfortable with that. So one of the things that we've been talking to students about is, how do you ask? How do you do this? Because we will be learning within that group I mentioned about our own learning profiles. First learning in general about them with all individuals, and then each student will be learning about their own so that they can help advocate for themselves and also be more aware of how to talk about that within their own community of learners that they identify with as well. So you'll see here that Jamila has speech intervention versus speech disabled Jamila. We tend to use the term learning difference. unique learning profile, how Megan understands her disability versus understands her unique learning profile, things about parking spaces, handicap parking spaces versus ADA parking, Americans with Disabilities Act parking, and we've slowly kind of getting to that language. And it's not just students. We have not just students who may have IEPs. We have over 300 students who are either on an IEP, 504, or a student support plan within the SU, in addition to staff with accommodation plans due to their differing abilities too. We've post-COVID, right in the middle of COVID, when lots of people needed accommodations, we started an ADA committee, so we made sure we were consistent with everyone. And lots of good work came out of that, so staff has come forward on what they may need. I thought this would be just a time to dovetail some of that thinking into our own thinking as we move forward this year. And we'll be working with this and students with this, changing their language, and hopefully then it trickles to parents and other community members. That's it.
Did you not do some of this, I think 2 years ago? I think it was post-COVID when kids were beginning to come back into the school, and I think you put together language and put it on the outside playground. I don't remember, but I thought you did.
Our communication boards.
Yes.
Yes, which locally, the Special Needs Support Center is trying to convince the town of Hartford, actually, in their playground and recs, to put them in. So we're working with them to see if we can figure out how to help them do that. So yes, that has gotten out, which is pretty cool.
I appreciate this, I really do.
Thank you, Katie. And Larry,
Yep.
you demand.
All right,
Larry, are you gonna share your own screen?
sure.
Okay.
Okay. First, just want to let everybody know it's more informational that the financials, the first quarter financials were put for this fiscal year into the board portal the Monday after October 1st. Not much to say about those other than it's very early. But they're there if you want to see it. Nothing's, happened yet. We'll get more information as we get to the third and fourth quarter as usual. Now we're going to talk about next fiscal year. So we're always straddling 3 different fiscal years. Last fiscal year, 23, this current fiscal year is 24, and 25 next fiscal year. The budget committee is Rebecca to my right and Colleen Spence, who we will miss greatly. So we're going to need a representative from Heartland, talk amongst yourselves to be on the budget committee. Jamie Turner, our superintendent, and myself. And we've had several meetings working on this. Work in between the meetings and following up and making sure that they vetted everything before you guys saw it. Also, want to step back. I think Rebecca brought this up at the last, talking about what the SU is. And, I was thinking about it. It's, there's a lot of language, but basically it's sharing. The SU is sharing. And we were talking last SU board meeting about how great would it be if we could share the nurses or the health teacher. And and I think it comes easy to us because we share a superintendent, we share a DEI coordinator, we share a special ed director, rather than having 3 districts with 3 superintendents and 3 DEI coordinators and 3 IT directors and so on and so forth. 3 curriculum directors. This is a much more efficient way to do business. We also want to make sure we tied in everything in the budget with the strategic plan and make sure we the ones, without creating a complete crazy bullet list, surface a few of those. The Leader in Me curriculum, the assessment plan, Tracy and Angie spoke to, Learning Inspired, the STAR, which Bill already mentioned, school to home coordinators, the new ELA math curriculum that you heard earlier tonight about from Angie. This is our main goal this year is culture and staff student wellness. And that includes Tracy and equity has been out in the general fund this year. She's in the ESSER 3, but as we talked about last fiscal year, this position would be moved to the general fund for fiscal year 25, and that's in the budget. That's the only additional FTE in the fiscal year 25 budget for admin and operations. Leader and Me, Student Lighthouse Team, Panorama Data, Child Nutrition, very popular among our staff. It's Free Lunch Wednesday. Talkspace is an app released by the Agency of Education for wellness and mental health for our staff. Information communication, Christine is doing that with Superintendent's Corner. We're looking to add SMS. We're in the early stages of that, but that was talked about at the previous question that Christine had. We have to do a letter out to parents first to have them opt in. Then we add their SMS. They'll get a text saying, do you want to opt in for information from Windsor Southeast SU? They say reply with a Y. You probably got those texts before. And then in the future, they will get a text from the superintendent, whether that'll be the next Superintendent's Corner or the one after that. I'm working with School Messenger on, which by the way, just got bought by Power School. So we're working on that. I did test it earlier. I was the only one who got the text because I helped it in, but I did test it earlier. Our data leader, which is Brittany, is in the general fund, and that's information communication. We did that last year. Communications, a website redesign for this summer. The communication specialist, it was achieved via attrition. It's not an additional FTE. We had a retirement, and we hope to make that person full-time next year to replace that. If you go through right here, this is a pie chart showing the budget by account code. So the account code is usually what most people think of the budget when it comes to supplies or wages and benefits or contracted services. As you can see, a big part of that is transportation, which is at the SU level, and tuition, which is about the same as a little bit more than transportation, is almost entirely special ed at the SU level. At the local level, you'll see tuition for those with school choice and as revenue for Mount Scotty School District. Function is what we think of when we think of like departments. So for example, central services, that would be Christine. DEI would be instructional support and curriculum. SPED administrative, I think, speaks for itself. Student transportation, again, is under a function there. Direct instruction, that is mostly special ed, which makes up a large part of the SU budget and a large part of the direct instruction. The only one outside of special ed, I believe that would be direct instruction, would be ELL under curriculum.
ELL?
English language learners. So the total budget for fiscal year 25 we're proposing tonight is $13,265,882. That's a 5.39% increase with special ed and a 3.86% of the increase for non-special ed admin and operations. So how does that compare to previous years? It's the rate of increase is down from last year and previous years except for 23, which was last year. And then I broke that out. So if you look at this chart, and then I move forward, you can see I broke out that all these columns I broke out from special ed and admin and operations. Special ed being the red, admin and operations being the blue. That big jump you see in fiscal year 22, that's when we put transportation at the SU level and zeroed it out of your local budgets.
And then what year did we add maintenance and kitchen?
Maintenance is still locally funded.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes. We've talked a lot about it.
Okay.
The problem, and I frankly would personally be on board with that and zeroing out local budgets. Where we usually get caught up is from an assessment point of view, is how do we assess that out? I have some thoughts. Maybe we'd go with square footage, acreage, or some other ways, but there's significantly more buildings and operations at Mount Scottney than the other schools, Mount Scottney School District, than the other schools. There is it's kind of a sharing system that goes on now that Mount Scottney School District does receive, maybe this is what you're thinking of, does receive revenue from Weathersfield and Heartland
Okay.
to Mount Scottney, but it's not, they're not SU positions.
Yeah.
What does this mean for your assessments? So a question that comes up a lot, and this was in the superintendent's corner last Friday, was how much of our budgets are the SU? So I broke it out, your local budgets, plus minus 1%, depending on the district, is 70% or so of your expenditure dollar. And special education, as you can see, is 16%, food services 1.3%, early childhood is roughly 2%, admin and operations, which is pretty much everything in the general fund, non-special ed, is 9.6%. And then to give you another look at how would this look, again, as part of your dollar, would be the local budget's there, special education's there, admin and operations, which includes the business office, curriculum, DEI, HR, superintendent, IT services, and transportation is that dime. Early childhood program, again, that 2.2%. I didn't cut off and do fractions of a penny. And food services.
This is really,
Yeah.
really wonderful.
Yeah.
These are terrific slides.
Quick question. Do you have a particular formula that you're using this year to anticipate professional staff contract increases and wages and benefits of?
Yeah, so I chose a percentage that I feel comfortable with as preparing for the budget,
Which is?
not knowing.
I don't think we should talk about it, right?
I don't want to be accused of
Okay.
negotiating against ourselves.
Right.
But I had to pick a number that is in line with the numbers I've hit historically, and I feel comfortable with the budget number I picked for wages. There's very few, any teacher contract negotiations that, when hopefully we have a negotiated contract with all the work you're doing, Bill, the big, percentage of that will be at the local level. It will not be the SU budget.
Right.
At the SU budget, there's very few contracted teachers. It's basically 11 to 12 at special ed, give or take, that are 5111, and then account code 5111, and then ELL, and then
But it's all the special ed teachers.
it's all the special ed teachers. But what I'm saying is relative to Mount Scottney or Weathersfield or Heartland, there's significantly more teachers at the local level.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is whatever conservative number I picked would not change the bottom line of this budget too much because there's so few teachers. Most of the people in the SU as an FTE basis are either admin at will or non-teacher support staff. Equalize. Do you want to take questions now or do you want me to finish?
I'd like you to finish.
Okay, yeah, equalize pupil history. So one thing that we've been seeing a trend, and I think this shows it well, is that Mount Scottney has been kind of staying level over the years. Mount Scottney School District, that's the green line up top, which pays most of the SU assessment. Heartland's has been going down, and Weathersfield has been going up, roughly. So that, as many of you know, we break out the assessment based on equalized pupil count for all the assessments except for food service, which we base on the actual student ADM count. So what this means is even if the budget were flat, Weathersfield will pay more. In addition, in the everything I shared out October 10th, I also added a tab at the far right of the all the budget information called the Weathersfield question, which basically was a question that I wanted to look into on behalf of Weathersfield and Jamie Turner, who is on the budget committee. And her question would be, what would our assessment be had we had the exact same equalized pupil as last year, and it was roughly $300,000. Another way to put that is almost 40, a little over 40% of the entire difference is based on the fact that Weathersfield has more students relative to the other districts, which is a good thing. They still pay the least amount of the SU assessment, which you'll see on the next slide, which is a total amount by district. As you can see, Harlan pays 2.7, well, Scotty pays almost 4 million, a little over 4 million, and Weathersfield would be paying 2.3 million. I only have a couple more slides to go. Next would be the budget timeline. So as we're, just to give you an idea where we are, that lighter blue, I know it doesn't look so great right here, but that lighter blue is where we are today. And so we're about halfway through the budget process, and we want to lock this budget in and start working on the local budgets in November, December, so we can get everything ready for a town meeting. Everything below that lesser blue is all the work that's been gone up to now by the budget committee and the SU.
So you're gonna keep going and take questions? I just wanted to, I mean, obviously Larry has done an incredible job on this presentation with the help of the budget committee, and I just wanted to thank them because I think it's a lot of work. And he's really done a good job. I mean, the rate is down from last year, so we do feel really good about the budget. Hoping the board may consider approving it this evening if they're ready. It would just help the local budgets get started, so.
And everything I presented tonight has been at the, on the board portal, and all the backup documentation, the spreadsheets and the charts and everything have been up on the SU website and the board portal as of October 10th. I'll take any questions.
Beth?
Yeah, thanks. I believe all our COVID funding is done, right, for next year, like our ESSER funding?
It depends. It ends September 30th, 2024. So like, for example, Summer Academy would still have one more go of it.
Great. So I guess my question is like, what is discontinuing being funded because of lack of ESSER funds? I guess is my first question. Like, is there positions or programs that are no longer moving forward because we don't have those funds?
That wouldn't be the case here because it's in.
At the SU level,
Yeah.
right?
Kindergarten interventionist. The positions that are ESSER funded are going to be absorbed in local budgets, is my understanding. That's 2 positions at Weathersfield, 2 at Heartland, and they are currently unfilled at Windsor. The leader in me is absorbed into the SU curriculum budget. I think what else are some of the big ones? DEI is locally is moving to SU budget. What else?
Our school coordinator, which is Panorama, which is in your budget now, your budget.
What?
Panorama.
Panorama is gonna go into the curriculum software budget.
Yeah.
We Are Hope is being completely ESSER funded this year, so it was last year half We Are Hope, half ESSER and half Medicaid.
Yeah.
So it could possibly become Medicaid, and let me think. I know there's
The curriculum materials.
curriculum materials that we put ESSER, we put Weathersfield and Albert Bridge into the into ESSER last year because we could use title funds to pay for Windsor and Heartland, and we have added curriculum supplies into the SU curriculum budget for math and ELA. And
those are
the HRS mental health clinician will probably go back to Katie, to Idea B. And Summer Academy, right now, we are looking at being able to partially fund what we've done in the past. So there is another summer school grant that is available to us that the deadline is in January, that we are going to apply for to run a really exciting summer program.
And as of today, we may be eligible for more funds from that Act 112 as well. I met with them today.
And Beth, I think one thing, go ahead.
What?
Well, I think Beth, I think one thing that the SU board as a whole that was very smart was we added in the 3-24 budget, the data coordinator, and then the DEI coordinator proposal in tonight's budget for 25. So it wasn't all in one.
No, I
year.
recognize that.
And then also, I think Summer Academy would be for fiscal year 26 conversation.
And I guess my follow-up to that, so it sounds like We Are Hope is not fully funded for this coming year.
For FY 25?
Yeah.
No.
So
No.
I think, I mean, so
I
I
don't
would
know.
say, I would say that I, as a board member, I would want that resource in for our students. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. But I guess I'll throw it out there to the administration and the SU staff of like, what did you pull out like that? I mean, I don't think the increase is very large, but it's just like, makes me wonder, like, did you feel there were any sacrifices that you made that you were like, oh gosh, I really wish we could have that,
No, I
you know,
think,
I don't know, like,
with strategic plan, goal 3, I think, again, I think it was intelligent to do the communication specialist by attrition. And, I think whenever we can do that, that's smart financial sense.
but you're also, but the person that you're losing was obviously a needed position, I would assume. So you
so
are losing an SU position, but gaining it in a different way. Is that right?
You got it. Yeah, so basically I can talk a little freely about it. It's the IT department, and I have moved some things around within the IT department. For example, I took over the state reporting. That used to be Ryan, now I'm doing that. I took that off his plate. We're taking some other website stuff off his plate so that we can move some things around. I'm doing some tickets so that we can get by without that additional tech. And we have a plan for this communications person to equal a 1.0, that it would do other things other than just the website, which is not a 1.0. It's probably closer to a 0.4, 0.5.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just a matter of sound management to kind of move some things around and keep everybody going without being overstaffed.
Great. Yeah, no, I just don't want ever to have a feeling that the SU is just getting by, you know, like that you feel supported in those decisions, that you have what you need to do the great work you're doing. That's all.
Thanks, Beth.
Thanks, Beth.
Yeah.
Davis?
Yeah, I think Beth covered a little bit about what I was going to ask about as far as funding for positions going ways. I appreciate you going to detail on that. Just a general note, and I mean, I think you're used to me singing your praises by now, Larry, but I really appreciate the variety of different visuals that you used to get that information out there. I particularly was taken back by the coin page there. I mean, it seems simple, but it really is in alignment with some of the goals that we set at the SU retreat about making sure that the information that we present here that can be very complex is comprehensible to us and to our community members and even to our students. Because when we have that shared understanding, we're better able to participate in this. So I truly thank you for putting that together, and thanks to everybody else who's put a lot of hard work into putting this SU budget together. Really appreciate it.
So based upon time, I'm going to move things along here, but I'm going to throw out a question, not necessarily a voting question, but I want your general opinion. Either we can vote on the budget tonight. The other option I'm going to put out there is that for us to hold a special meeting to vote on it. So it really all depends on how comfortable you are. I don't want to wait for, and I don't think Larry wants to wait until next SU budget to approve the budget. Next SU meeting to approve the budget is sort of stack things up. So
I'm not sure what more we need to know or what more questions we need to
Okay.
ask.
thank you, Nancy. I'm comfortable with voting tonight. Davis? Okay.
I'm also comfortable. With voting tonight.
Does anyone have an opposing position or would like to chime in on where they're at? Okay, I will take a motion to approve the SU budget of Larry
Hold on, actually,
Yeah.
wait 1 second. I did propose that We Are Hope be put fully in the budget. So I don't know what that expense looks like. I don't understand. So I have no idea if that's something we can do
So it should,
beyond that, or if that's something, I don't know.
so we funded it, we funded it last year, half Medicaid, half, ESSER. We funded it fully this year
Which
with
is about
ESSER.
121
Yeah,
this
121.
year, is what we funded, and that's roughly what we funded last year too, half ESSER, half Medicaid.
Yeah. And we're hoping, we're not expensing those Medicaid funds this year. We're hoping to build that pool of money up with the hope of covering We Are Hope next year in full.
Got it. Okay, thank you,
That makes
Christine.
sense. Yeah.
Yep, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you, Beth.
Great question though, Beth.
I will take a motion to approve the SU budget of,
$13,260,582.
so,
So moved. Second, Rebecca.
any discussion? Okay, we'll see how good I can go around the names here. Beth, how do you vote?
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
Elizabeth?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Anne Marie?
Aye.
Pauline?
Aye.
Is there anyone online that I do not see at this time?
I think you got them all.
Okay. Nancy?
Aye.
Rebecca?
Aye.
And I am an aye. It
Thank
passes
you.
unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
yes. Oh, my goodness.
Nicely done.
What a beautiful report.
Yes. I was gonna ask too.
Yeah.
Items for discussion followed by a motion. I will take a motion to approve B22, public complaint about personnel.
Be happy to do it, but I do it all the time, so.
Anyone?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Any discussions, or I can start off? All the changes that I asked for has been included, and it's pretty straightforward. I like how it's read. We've worked on this a long time, and
You good with the definition? We added that last
I
time.
am
Okay.
good with the definition.
Okay.
Especially seeing I'm the one who
I know.
suggested it, yeah. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. Beth, how do you vote?
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
Elizabeth?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Anne Marie?
Aye.
Pauline?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Rebecca?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We can work on procedures for this one now.
Huh?
We can work on the procedures now. That it's
Yes,
passed,
yeah. C28, I am not gonna take a motion on this, just because I think there's a lot of more work to be done.
Mhm.
The difference between the yellow and the Hartford piece. One example that I'm confused about is, are we required to change transcripts upon request?
Only with the only if it's a legal request, right?
Right, but
Yeah.
the italics is pretty clear about that. The Hartford one isn't quite so
Okay.
clear, so I'm,
Okay.
that's sort of, and I don't know if Christine, you and I wanna
We should
get together and
Yeah.
sort of
let's do
pound that
that.
out and work on it.
Okay.
Does anyone object to moving on to another reading of this?
No.
Okay, thank you. Yep. New communicable disease mitigation measures for students and staff. I will take a motion to approve this, policy.
Motion to approve communicable disease mitigation measures for students and staff. I think we talked about this and felt that it was
Yeah.
pretty, not boilerplate, but I mean, sort of.
Yeah, there's not a lot of wiggle room for that.
Right.
It's not something that we can really change.
Was that a motion?
No, it was not.
Sorry, I misheard. My apologies.
Now, she was asking a question. I believe.
Yeah.
So, Davis, do you want to make the motion? I guess my question is, anybody want to make a motion to approve the,
I so move. Motion it.
okay.
Second.
Thank you. Okay,
So moved is the word you want.
any discussion? Nancy, Rebecca brought up the question is this the one that we've been looking at? And the answer is yes. It's, I don't want to call it boilerplate, but there's really nothing that we could logically change as non-medical professionals unless we have a medical professional here who would like to object to some portion of it. Any other discussion? Okay, let's start outside here. Rebecca?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Beth?
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
Elizabeth?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Anne Marie?
Aye.
Pauline?
Aye.
And I am an aye. So that has passed. Now let's start working on procedures.
Yep.
A20, board meetings, agenda preparation and distribution.
So moved. Right.
As a motion, and Nancy had moved, I think we've gone over this quite a bit.
Yep.
Anyone second it?
Second.
Okay, any discussion about it? No, okay, let's go around the room. Nancy,
Aye.
Rebecca,
Aye.
Beth,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Elizabeth?
Sorry, is this the one about the agenda preparation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, there's a typo.
Ah, thank you, Elizabeth.
Where is it? Do you know? Can you point it out?
It is,
We can find it if you don't have it in front of you, Elizabeth.
I do have it. Where is it? I can't find it. I'm sorry.
That's okay. We'll look for it. I put a note on it. You can assure we'll
I
fix
vote
it.
aye pending correction.
Yes, thank you. Pending the correction. Megan,
Aye.
Anne Marie,
Aye.
Pauline,
Aye.
and I am an aye pending finding and
Yep, I'm looking.
correcting the typo that Elizabeth had found. Am an aye. Thank you all.
Which one was that?
Board meetings, A20. Yep.
E20. I have to say, I haven't really looked at this.
It's hot off the press.
Yes.
I need to take off, so I'm hoping I'm not breaking quorum. I think we have enough, right? I need to go
What?
skedaddle with the kid.
That has to go.
Good to see
Yeah.
you all.
Okay.
Bye, Beth. This one I'd love to look at with Jim Taft too.
Yes.
I think he might have some
Yeah.
things to say about it, or,
Mhm.
and I have not done that yet.
Yeah.
So,
And I believe we've discussed C41 quite a bit tonight.
Mhm.
Okay. More to come, I do believe. Tracy? Okay. Setting next agenda.
So on our work plan, we've got the FY25 calendar I'll bring.
Okay,
We've got Tracy, we've got the CIA report, and my report we don't have. And so I'll move forward the community use of school facilities policy for a second read. And that's the only one. We have a little bit of
transgender.
and the transgender, yes. Yep. So,
Elizabeth?
Thank you. Christine, could you please look into the legality of asking people who are using the school facilities as a community facility be required to adhere to the rules that are applied during the day?
yes, I will.
Thank you.
I think it's pretty common to, at least in the Hartford, that they adhere to all other
Yeah.
school policies.
Yeah, just want to make sure that it's
Yep.
all square.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, got it. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Can we also just touch bases on the strategic plan report card?
Sure, I can bring that back
Yeah.
next time. Yeah,
That's helpful, this has been helpful, but
good.
get a chance.
Yep. Sure
I'm
thing.
very excited that now I know where to find the procedures.
Oh,
I've
I'm
been
sorry.
I've been going through the website and trying to find them, and I'm like, maybe just go on. It's the link.
Yeah.
I keep trying to hit the paper link here and have it open up.
Oh.
No, I'm kidding.
Yes, smart table, smart board.
Yes, and smart
Or do
paper.
us there and make it
Smart
bigger.
Okay. So that's all I have. I've got my report. I'll bring back the report card of the strategic plan, the calendar, Tracy's report, CIA report, and those two policies. The transgender and community use of schools, if that's good.
I'm sure something else will come up.
Well, we do have the kindergarten one. I saved that. I put that on December because we didn't have that many, but I'm happy to bring it next
Okay.
month if you want. Okay. Well, we're light on the policies?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Might as well get ahead.
That one's pretty cut and dry too. Bill, it's 8:29. How did you do that? That's amazing.
I don't know how I did it. I thought we were definitely way over. When it comes to the policies, I like making it very quick.
Yeah, me too.
Well, it's a third reading on a
Yeah.
lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Helps to read things beforehand.
Yeah.
And I came 15 minutes early to read some of the policy, but we got into such a really
We
interesting
did.
discussion.
You did. And thank you very, very much for passing the budget tonight. That's really helpful. So
Thank you.
much appreciated.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for what you did.
Do we-
Okay, so, do we need an executive session?
No,
Okay. We will next time, though, I believe. About something you brought up to me.
I can do that.
Yeah.
I'd like to do it next time. And,
Okay.
I believe the point you made, Larry, about this topic is that, you asked about having the executive session, not just at the end, but after another topic that you had to talk about.
I could, I think in executive session, we can talk about this.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think, with the budget adopted, I don't think it's necessary to do the
No,
former.
I think we
Okay.
can
Just
do
go right to the
after.
latter.
Okay.
At the end, okay.
Okay.
Yep. Perfect, thank you.
Do we need to take a side?
Yes.
Are you talking about for next week?
I will take a motion to close, to end this school board meeting.
So moved, Davis.
Second, Colleen.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Bye.
Aye.
Aye.
Good night.
Bye, bye.
Thank you.
Thank
for
you,
the
Rebecca.
budget. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Bill,